brain. Welcome into his frequency. Enter at your own risk. Come be at peace with me. Ask the Paul, where we rise and don't fall.
Welcome back to another episode of Baxter's Buzz. I am your host, Baxter E. Hall. Welcome to my brain. Welcome to my frequency. Enter at your own risk. Today, I have a special guest with me. She is an HR executive and the founder of Organizational Kimistry. Play on the word, we'll come back to that. Where she does speaking and consulting. Kimika Garret, welcome to Baxter's Buzz. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Baxter. Thank you so much for inviting me on. I'm really excited to be here today.
Well, it's long overdue. We were talking offline a bit. It's just about you know, not even 6 degrees, 2 degrees, 1 degree of separation, and the circles we've been in, and us finally kind of connecting and starting to build. This is like an additional opportunity. So I'm anxious to learn more about you, anxious for others to learn more about you, and yeah, I'm glad we finally were able to pull it together.
Yes, thank you. I'm excited too.
Yeah, yeah. So, um, organizational chemistry, uh, Kimistry, right?
You got
Um,
it.
it's play on your name, right?
That's correct. Yes.
Kimika, but then also there's like an actual like a true like chemistry piece to like the consulting work that you do, right?
Yes, it is. So, my tagline is the science of effective organizations. And so, when I was coming up and thinking of like, what do I want the name of my company to be? And anyone that may know me know that I'm pretty creative, right? And so I was like, I know it's something with organizing and it's with businesses and companies and organizations. And I was like, organizational. Okay, got that. Then I was like, all right, so chemistry, but like chemistry in its true sense. And I'm like, well, how do I operate? How do I work with businesses? How do I help them solve problems? And the way that I look at it is like the periodic elements of a table, right? Um, each there's several ingredients or elements on the table, and when you pull them, you mix and you create a solution of some sort, right? For me, that's how I operate and how I partner with organizations. So when I'm helping them solve a problem, I have all these elements that I can pull from. And so it's like chemistry to me. And so that's where I pull from this piece here, this element here. And now we have a customized solution specifically for that organization. Now, my approach is that there may be a foundational um, approach, but the solution itself is always customized, just as in chemistry, where we're pulling together and testing
Yeah.
out and trialing out, testing trials and everything. That is where the chemistry came from. But then, of course, being me as Kamika and anything but the norm, I couldn't call it just chemistry with a C. It had to be chemistry as play on my name,
No,
Kimistry.
no, that's brilliant. And so the first thing I started to think about when you start talking about these different elements in a periodic table is you must know a lot in order to be able to sort of, I think about it like tailoring, like like whatever the solution is going to be. Talk about like sort of your basis as far as the um of knowledge and sort of like where do you get the depth of like resources that you have to pull from because every organization is a little bit different
Hmm.
and if you're talking to individuals they have different strengths and areas for improvement, so like where do you get your experience from and how do you incorporate that into the elements that you're pulling in for folks.
So remember I told you I had a foundation? So first off, the
Mm.
foundation is that I don't pull from anywhere. I actively listen without coming with any preconceived anything. I listen to what the client or the business or whoever I'm talking to, what their problem is. just intentionally fully present, right? And then that way it takes out any bias that I have or anything that may, come. That way I can really, really just understand what are they trying to say, what are they not saying,
Mm.
listening to them. And I tell my children this little thing. I say, listen with your ears and not your mouth.
Yeah.
So when you're
Yeah.
listening with your mouth, you're already trying to think and formulate what you want to say or how you're going to solve their problem from
Yeah.
your vast experiences. Instead, I am actively listening with my ears, my mind, everything to what they are saying, they're not saying, their movements, their nonverbal cues, their verbal cues, all those things. And then from there, I start thinking about where are they at? Because
Mm.
even before I start pulling off my table of elements to solve their problem, I need to understand where are they at mentally, personally, as an individual, because I can pull something high off of this table that's very, very sophisticated and advanced. And if they are not at that point, that is not going to be a solution for their problem. So that's the second thing I do is like really trying to understand because I want to meet them where they are at, right? From there, then I go at and I'm like, okay, here's my experiences. I cut my teeth in HR and nonprofit. That was my first job. Okay. Anybody that works in nonprofit, I learned everything. I learned how to do everything the hard way with limited resources and no funding.
Yeah. Yeah.
And self-taught, right? And so just by trial and error, just find out the things that work. So I've been in nonprofit. I've worked at a startup company in a high tech. So I've worked with engineers and product development and designers. I've worked in automotive, and then even cut my teeth, which is where I had a lot of fun at. We're working for a large consulting firm. So there, I got to work with pharmaceutical companies, with the government, with so that fast food restaurant, doing all these different things. So learning how they do business, how other organizations do business, that is how I build my table of
Mm.
possibilities. And then what will happen is that sometimes now that I have like my table of possibilities of possible solutions or elements, now it's like, okay, this particular client could use an approach or element that this one fast food restaurant used, plus maybe what this government entity used, and maybe a little bit of this nonprofit there, so they don't have any resources. So we got to get a little creative.
Yeah.
And I pulled it together, and maybe that could potentially be the solution, but it may
Yeah.
not be. Then
Yeah.
we take, then we kind of work and massage it and find out. Now we're creating chemistry here to find out what that solution is specifically for that person or that organization.
Yeah. I love that. And I love the experience and exposure to the different industries. That's important because there's some common issues amongst businesses in general, where there's some parallels, but then the different industries, they have their own kind of things, right? And so having that exposure to those different industries, I mean, pharmaceuticals and manufacturing and then fast food, I mean, those are pretty different, right? And so being able to bring that all to the table, kind of put that in your tool belt, I'm sure it's been super beneficial for you.
Yeah. It has
Yeah.
served me well because it lends to my creativity. I like to creatively identify potential solutions. So having that background of those different projects and roles allows me to be even more creative.
Yeah. So, when you think about HR, and y'all my people. I love my HR folks. So, and there is a space for creativity in some areas of your duties. And then there's some things that are more black and white. Like, how do you, I'll give you an example. So for me, being in a consultative role, like in a business development role, I've been able to get creative with the way that I prepare for my presentations. Um, and that's been able to scratch my creative itch, which I didn't know I would ever get there, right? But every organization is different. And so I'm like, I'm like in the lab, thinking about things, how I'm going to prepare. And then there's like a performative like piece too, but I've been really thrilled with how like being able to inject my creativity in how I prepare and how I present and prepare my team members when we go out and present. Like talk about from an HR perspective, like how are you able to inject all your personality into these rooms, into these things that historically have been, a lot of like very like straight to the point, black and white,
Mhm.
type of sort of functions.
Yeah. So I'll go back to your foundation. So think about how I have a foundation and then the elements which allows for my creativity. So thinking about, we have a policy of where we want to do performance reviews or some type of policy that is a set policy that we need to implement. Got it. It's not sexy. It's not sexy. It's just a policy. How you get creative is how do you roll out the policy? How do you get people excited to want to do this new performance review process, right? So that's one of the challenges we as HR professionals have is getting people to adapt to a new way of doing something.
Mm,
So we're going from once a year only annual reviews, and now we know just as an industry and society is it's beneficial to have frequent check-ins, right? So you'll see more companies moving away from maybe a really structured, rigid, formal once a year review to maybe doing mid-year reviews with quarterly check-ins. So yes, we have that annual, but now we need to get people excited about it. So now that's where my creativity gets to come in. I look at the business or the organization I'm working with, and I was like, okay, how can I make this one easy? Because if it's hard, I don't want to do it. How am I going to
mm,
have somebody else want to do it? So that's
mm.
first and foremost. I think that's why people like me as an HR person. I'm like, listen here, if it's more than 2 clicks, you're going to lose me. Okay. You got to make it simple. So it's like, how can I make it simple? Where is everybody at? You remember when I was saying about meeting them where they are? So where
Yeah.
are they at? Right. So let me meet them where they are. That's how easy does it be? Do I need to put up a kiosk or something on the manufacturing floor just with a bookmark and that's the only thing that's on there or something that's easy to click, whatever it is, it's very simple for
Mm,
them. And then do they have the support? So like that's where I kind of be allowed to be creative on customizing how we roll out programs to business units, to the company, etc. And so that's where I take that really sexy annual performance review and try to make sure that we're customizing it so that those who are impacted and actually really will truly benefit from it
yeah.
are ready to receive it and adopt it.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that. Cause yeah, the it's the way you frame it, right? The way you kind of introduce it, and then it's that follow up piece that's super important, and that
Mhm.
support piece, which kind of goes to another point, just around like overall employee engagement in like um these hybrid spaces, these 100% remote spaces. When you think about challenges around engagement, and obviously engagement is connected to retention, but specifically in the engagement space, like what are some things that you found that have been successful like keeping folks engaged when you don't necessarily see them face to face, like on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah. So a few things that I've done as a leader is one, I just make sure that I have some little check-ins, right? Sometimes I've also did group check-ins, but where the team, not myself, but the team leads them. So they rotate, they decide the agenda, they decide like what our icebreaker topic is going to be. So it's team led and driven instead of being leader led and driven because it feels like I'm telling that information and pushing
Mm-hmm.
it down. Instead, I want to cultivate where the team comes together and they're engaged, like whatever that topic is going to be. I make sure that I'm accessible. So I can, like I'll say that email, if you email me, it could go there to die. But if you want my immediate attention, text me or ping me or something like that, and I make sure that I provide that attention and engagement there. Um, and then also just really creating that space to engage if you can, but first you have to build the trust, but to engage that team outside of work. And then lastly, but not least, what the main thing that I have done that kind of is a culmination of all that is what an approach of what I call holistic leadership. So I grew up in an age where coming into the workforce, you don't talk, you leave personal at home. So this is work-life balance. You don't talk about your kids. Everybody know you have kids and dogs and everything like that.
Mhm.
And it's just like, this is something taboo. You should not be talking about this. And then the pandemic hit and everybody's personal life, everything started really showing up.
Yeah.
And I
Showing up
and
on
I
screen.
showing up on screen, on
Cats,
calls,
dogs, toddlers, teens.
everything, everything. Significant others,
Right.
everything, right? And so it just for me, I was like, how can I help this holistically? So I started dabbling around in what I am now calling my approach to leadership and development is holistic leadership. I
Mm.
started leading the whole person. So like in HR, it's kind of like we should, we used to would coach people, managers not to ask or not to really bring, keep it separate, the personal life. You know what? What I do is no, I want to know what's going on. Do you got fur babies? Yes, because fur babies are important.
Yeah.
Do you have grandkids? Because if people say that grandkids do not run the show, they run the show. Okay. So like I want to know. Then so I'll give you an example. I had an analyst on a team and we were creating like the annual objectives and kind of like what we want to accomplish. And I shocked her by asking what does she want to accomplish personally. And she said she wanted to become a certified scuba instructor. I said, okay, let's go ahead and put that into the plan and let's talk about what is needed. So she wanted to also be promoted. So we talked about what is going to be needed to be promoted, what do you have, how do you need to show up, etc. Then I said, well, let's talk about what do you need to do to become a scuba certified scuba instructor. I think that's what it was. And so she was like, I think she wanted to go to Thailand. It was like we were talking in maybe August. This is supposed to happen in December. I was like, well, how much time do you need? I looked at the project plan. I said, okay, in order for this to happen, we have some deliverables here, here, and here. You're going to need to take this time off. You're responsible for this work. Do we need to shift this, add these resources? So having that discussion allowed me to empower and enable her to manage her work accordingly so that she was then able to take that time off and come back and as a certified scuba instructor. So this is an example of leading holistically. If I had not asked her what were some of her upcoming aspirations, she probably would not have talked about it. And there were two deliverables that would have been due smack dead in the time she would have wanted to take off.
Mm.
But with the planning that we had available, it was quite easy to shift that as well as make sure that we had a backfill. So I did some tandem knowledge transfer so that we had the
Yeah.
ability to cover that. So that's an example of like leading holistically where she like knowing that I helped someone accomplish something outside of work that would not have probably been possible
Yeah.
just fills my spirit.
Yeah. So that's similar to sort of an idea that I have, and I talk to leaders about. And just tell me if I'm crazy. I would say these new employees they're not going to stay. They're not going to stay anyway.
Mm-mm.
Let's just assume that, right? But if you engage them the way that you did, and if you can learn about them and help them get to wherever they're trying to go, maybe you keep them another 6 months. Maybe you keep them another, 18 months. They're still probably leaving, but you're going to get a more productive and engaged person and an ambassador for the organization, right?
Mm-hmm.
Should they have friends or whomever that may be looking for it, right? So I think I was at the mall. I don't know. It doesn't really. I'm not gonna say it was a department store, and I was chatting. Imagine me chatting up with the random cashier, right? She had a name, or she had a tag on, but not a name tag. And I said, "What, what's going on with that?" And they said, "Yeah, well, they're not doing that anymore until you're here for 90 days or something like that."
Ah,
And I said, "Really?" I'm like, "Wow, how disheartening could that? What must that be? That they won't even invest a little time and money to put your name on there, knowing that you're not going to leave. Again, this person's already not engaged
mm-hmm.
in the org, or doesn't feel part of the organization, right? I mean, I think whether people are going to be around a year or 10 years or somewhere in between that, as a leader, your responsibility is to make that time as fulfilling as possible, right?
Mm-hmm.
And leave that person better than when you found them, right?
Yeah. And it also, so that's not crazy at all. Like, I think that notion of being with an organization for umpteen years is gone. I feel like some people look at my trajectory and they're like, "Whew, you've been a lot of places." Well, guess what? One, I get bored.
Yeah,
And so now it's on to the next
yeah,
on to the next thing, right? And so make sure you keep me engaged and keep, so that's what I do also. I
yeah,
need to be engaged. But then on the flip side, what I do is with the holistic leadership leading that way, I'm also I'm trying to create this little ripple effect that if she can experience a leader like that for her, she will never forget
yeah,
that little seed, so
yeah,
that maybe when it's her turn to lead, she'll also look at it holistically. And additionally, the other thing that I do is that it's also part of empowerment. So it's I know it's tried and true where if you empower employ and your team members, you get an actively engaged, better productive work, more output, creativity, like empower them.
yeah,
So, for example, I had a team member. She came to me. She was like, "My baby is graduating kindergarten. I'm going to take 2 hours of PTO so I can." Ma'am, you are salaried. If you don't go and manage your calendar
yeah,
and go see your baby off,
yeah,
I have
yeah,
faith that you will get to whatever, unless it's emergency and you need somebody to cover. I have faith that you are going to get your work done. And if you're not, you will raise your hand because I've created a space, the safe space for you to come and say, I don't think that I'm going to get this on time or something like that. But go to your baby's graduation. Yes, it's
yeah,
at a 2 o'clock on a Tuesday.
yeah,
Go to the baby graduation, take them out for ice cream afterwards. I'll see you tomorrow, or
yeah,
message me if you absolutely have to tonight to cover something. Like,
yeah,
I want you to feel empowered.
yeah.
And I hope that some people, those who've been on my team, will say to me, "Yep, Kimika definitely made me feel empowered to do my job."
Mm. Um, you talked about being bored. I, knowing you a bit, and we talked about some of the things that you're doing. I mean, you're doing speaking. You are, a member of boards. You are a SHRM instructor. Like you're doing, I mean, like, how do you find the time for all the things that you're looking into?
So I'll give you, if you haven't noticed yet, I don't give direct answers. I give backstories, then I give answers. So what I used to find is I used to say yes and be involved in everything. But as I began getting, more higher in the ranks in my career, I realized I wanted to spend being very, very intentional with my time. My time is my most valuable asset. And so then I said, knowing that, then I want to go and say, what do I find joy and purpose in doing? And those are the things I'm going to say yes to.
Yeah,
So you will see from probably the things that I am involved in, they are centered around things that I am passionate about, I'm good at, I get lost in time and space with. So, for instance, speaking is like literally my favorite thing. I'm going to use this term that is not proper English. It is my favoriteest thing to do. Favoriteest.
yeah, yeah,
I love it. And just a little side note. So many who may watch this or listen to this know Dr. Lee Nettles. He
Right.
is the one that gave me my first opportunity to speak at one of the NAAA HR Midwest
Mm,
conferences. And I did a topic on HR business partner one-on-one. And from that day forward, I caught the speaking bug. I love it. So I that's where I have these holistic leader, like I create, so my creativity comes out when I create these topics, holistic leadership. I have a topic or a series called Do It Afraid, because that's, as a woman, these are things I have done that help me within, I literally do it afraid. So I have a whole series
yeah.
there. And then I have another series of topics that's called Dare to Be Rare, because
Mm,
why else would I not dare to be rare?
yeah.
In addition to that, then I have speaking topics that also just go along the lines of the things in HR. So I've done several, talked at Detroit SHRM, Ann Arbor SHRM, my SHRM, various SHRM ones, which also led me to being a SHRM instructor. What
Yeah.
does a SHRM instructor do? Speak.
Yeah.
The other component is that I, for like my involvement in boards and in the community, I really want to see where can I impact and take the knowledge and skills, background, connections that I have to move the needle forward. So I'm on a board of Empower, which is one of a workforce development organization for IT. I know that um, traditional education is not for everyone, and it actively limits and rules out possible candidates. So as an HR professional, how do I tap into a different candidate pool? Well, instead of just talking it, I'm on the board to help with moving that particular thing forward. Recently on another board because I'm very passionate about women. And that's where my Do It Afraid series is for, mostly for women. And that's where I'm on in Forum, Michigan. They're a regional advisory board, and it's really geared at towards empowering women and the different things in like a association, professional association for women. So you'll see that where I spend my time, which is to me
Yeah.
valuable, is where my passions lie. And so
Yeah.
I want to spend more time where that passion lies. So how I find time for it, when I'm passionate about something, it doesn't time, space, energy, it just comes. So
Yeah. Yeah. I think when you're tied, when the work that you're doing is tied to your purpose, it makes those difficult days, a little less difficult, right?
mhm,
Because you know why you're doing it.
mhm.
The boards that I'm on, sometimes I get overwhelmed. I got a lot going on, right? And sometimes there'll be a board meeting or there'll be something I need to be at. And I'll just think, okay, I gotta get rid of one of these, but they're all they're connected. I got things that's more professional. I have some personal things, and there's nothing I can't let anything go, Kimika. So
Mm,
I'll be just kind of thinking like I gotta let this one, and then I say I can't, and I go back and forth because it does get hard, but it is tied to the things that I enjoy,
mhm.
and as long as you're doing that, I feel like because you're gonna have tough days and everything. You may as well have tough days with doing some stuff that you like doing, that you enjoy doing, right?
Exactly.
We gotta
Mhm.
pick our. We're gonna always have a problem. We pick our problem. We can either be bored, right? Or it could be like me and you, and we may be running around like crazy. We may be, our problem would be tired, but at least we're not bored,
No,
right?
definitely not. Definitely need a nap.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Um, so this is how I'd like to end. When when you think about upcoming leaders, it doesn't have to be HR leaders specifically, but folks that are coming through, that middle management going into like the executive like space. Like, what advice would you give folks that are kind of looking to take that next leap or in that transition period right now?
So the first thing, before I could even think, my spirit yelled to say for them to be human. Be a person.
Mm.
right? I think that a lot of times leaders come up and they're transitioning over to get this next level, get this promotion, and they're like this rigid person and, no feelings and no empathy and no nothing. And this is and KPI, 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 and grind, 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 grind. Guess what? You're a human,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
Be a human, and then you will create you now are being a leader and not a manager, right?
Mm.
So lead your people, be a human, um understand who first be very in tune with who you are. That way you can also better lead others.
Yeah.
Understand your strengths as well as your areas for opportunity so that therefore you can lead others better. And you have to be like a human being to do that. You can't be a machine. And so that's where, like, again, I go back to my holistic leadership. And I'll give you this example. When leading, I let my team know I have a major area of opportunity and that I get hangry. Okay? And it's gonna be there forever. Okay, people? Just forever. Y'all gonna look at this 10 years from now, like, yep, she still get hangry. Sure does. Yep. So, but I recognize that. So that's an area. So then I make sure that my team knows that if you hit me at 3 o'clock and she's feeling a little, yeah, right? Like, oh, hold on, Kimika, it's time for you a Snickers bar.
Yeah, right.
But so again, what I lead them with is be human.
Yeah.
Lead
Yeah.
lead with humanity. Lead as that you're leading people. Like those KPIs, that business operations, that deck, that spreadsheet, all of that is still going to be there. But if you're grinding your people out and you're running them through like a machine, that you're going to end up getting the output of, you're going to run them through like a machine and you're going to lose your people. So
Yeah.
be a human.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's good. Because tapping into that, you're able to see others, right? And that's what real leadership is about.
Mhm.
I like that.
And
I
then
like
it's
that.
like, then when they know that you're human, guess what? They're going to help you even be better. There's areas where you're just maybe you're not like you're so forward thinking here that you don't see things from this angle or from here, but they do. And if you create that space and that environment, your team will help you grow.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that right there is like if there's somebody out here, a leader who feel like they're not going to grow anymore and they learned everything they need to learn, I kind of beg to differ, but maybe
Yeah.
that's for you. For me, I think there's always opportunity for me to learn. So I
Yeah.
create that environment and that space. Like, tell me, I do it with my children.
Yeah.
It's tough. I tested it out with the kids first.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
oh gosh, you're going to really tell me that? Yes, you did. Great. You did not like that meal I just slaved over. Okay, that's amazing. Thank you. What can I
yeah.
do to improve it?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's yeah, you gotta, walk the walk and talk the talk sometimes. And yeah, sometimes it's not easy. But again, that's that human side that we need to be examples for
Hmm.
anyone that's around that. Okay, Tamika can admit maybe that thing didn't have enough salt in it, or maybe there was, an approach in the business in the meeting that I could have done something differently, or hey, I have blind spots like the rest of us. But if you are unapproachable and no one can tell you anything, that blind spot only becomes larger, and you are improving from it, and you're not empowering your team either,
Hmm.
right? So being human, I mean, I think that's what I'm going to name the podcast, um, this episode. But I also think it's important because humans see other humans
Hmm.
too, right? So it's a two-way street versus, like you said, this stone face
Hmm.
robot that, yeah, KPI.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's more to life than KPI, for sure, for sure. And hopefully the people that are listening and people just in general understand that their validation doesn't come with these KPIs, that they're much more um than a top line number or a bottom line number or
Hmm.
some KPI, right?
Yeah.
Man.
Definitely.
All right. Well, she is board member, speaker. She is a SHRM instructor. She is an HR exec, and she is the founder of Organizational Kimistry. Kimika Garret, thank you so much for joining me today. This was great.
Thank you, Baxter, for having me. Thank you all. Hopefully, this has inspired even a morsel of something
Yeah.
for you to take some action on, or just even to consider. So thank you, Baxter, for having me on and asking all those questions and letting me be me.
Yeah, for sure. That's why you're here. For everyone listening, for everyone watching, I just want you to know that you are capable. You just need to make sure that you are embracing your own frequency. So, with that being said, on behalf of Kamika, I'm Baxter E. And until next time, peace. That was good.
Welcome into his brain, welcome into his frequency. Enter at your own risk, come be at peace with me.
Thank you so much for watching this video. If you haven't already, please hit the like button, please subscribe, share, and also hit that notification button as well. Thank you so much.
Financial literacy to authentic black history, this real rap.